Recently, I made the dubious decision of posting a meme comparing the racism of Hillary Clinton with the racism of Donald Trump, only to be barraged by an onslaught of ignorance from both Donald Trump supporters and Hillary Clinton supporters, who then proceeded to fight each other in a comment thread which spanned 22 comments before I even got a word in edgewise. And because of that, I've decided that it is time for me to make a video to explain to Hillary Clinton supporters why Bernie supporters are still angry and still have every right to be angry. So the main reason is because we still believe that Hillary Clinton ran a dirty campaign. We will come back to that later, but for now, that is one of the main reasons why we are still angry. We are deeply angry that the media was for Hillary the entire time, and that the party was basically composed, at least the party leadership who conducted the primary, were composed almost entirely of Hillary Clinton partisans. Now, recently I did see a funny headline that said that the Hillary Clinton campaign is taking over the DNC as, a nominee's campaign does, and I had to kind of laugh at that as if there were some sort of actual difference between Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC as it was formed back when this primary began, because we all know this is the same thing. Now, most of all, though, so there's some other sort of rhetorical issues that we Bernie supporters are pissed off about, and some substantive ones. So I'm going to try to go through these things one by one. I'm doing this kind of off the cuff, so bear with me if I get a little bit disorganized. I think I'll be able to stay on track, most likely. One of the things that bothered me was Hillary Clinton's tendency to rely upon identity politics, and I think that was best exemplified by her use and her supporters' use of the term Bernie bros. Well, why weren't there people called Hillary hoes? You might say, well, that would be deeply sexist and it would be essentialist. And I would respond, yes, that's exactly right. The accusation of Bernie bros not only paints all Bernie supporters as being these sort of stupid frat guys, because that's what a bro normally is in common parlance, but also this idea that only men support Bernie and they only do so because it's a boys' club trying to exclude women. That is not accurate for a Democratic primary base. Almost everybody in the Democratic Party base is socially liberal. There are very few hardcore Democrats who would be socially conservative. Now, there are socially conservative Democrats, but almost none of them probably participate in the primaries, and almost none of them would be either hardcore advocates of either Bernie or Hillary. They're just not that motivated because they do see the dissonance between themselves and between their party. So let us dispel that notion once and for all. I actually am fond of calling the Hillary supporters hillbillies because they're, Hillary's husband Bill is from Arkansas. So yes, the Hillary hillbillies. How about that? It's not sexist, and it takes sort of, elite liberals from large cities and makes them out to be people from the Okies, which is fun and ironic. So how about the Hillary hillbillies? And this idea among the hardcore hillbillies is that the only real reason to support Bernie is because of white privilege. That you only do so because you have white privilege. And that by opposing the candidate who's most supported by minorities, you are basically being racist even if you don't intend to be. And this is an argument I've seen both from her actual paid supporters and from idiots on Facebook. The thing is, you don't have to be of a group to understand the plight of that group. That's a common myth spread by SJWs. We'll come back to that in a minute. But basically the idea of telling any white male if they're wrong about somebody's record on an issue if the group, if a certain group supports that person, i.e. that Bernie supporters who are predominantly white say that Bernie has a better record on civil rights than Hillary must be wrong because black voters support Hillary. The thing is, the record speaks for itself. Bernie Sanders has been a much stronger advocate of civil rights than Hillary Clinton over a very long time. Bernie Sanders did not support mass incarceration in the 1990s. If we go all the way back to the 1960s, Bernie Sanders got arrested for marching with civil rights protesters, whereas Hillary Clinton supported Barry Goldwater. Just because that record has been obscured now doesn't distort reality. It doesn't change what actually happened. It doesn't distort what they did at the time, what their records are on the issues. Now, back to this general dangerous idea that you can't possibly understand the plight or the struggles of another group if you're not a member of it. If we were to follow that to its logical conclusion, it would mean that all of us could only speak, think, write, and study things that pertain to us directly based on our gender, our race, our age, etc. The danger of that is that it would not enable us to form actual communities, to actually communicate with each other. If that were actually true, this idea that we have to be exactly like a person to understand them at all, then there would be absolutely no point in engaging in dialogue about social issues. It would be a self-defeating idea for like Black Lives Matter to have a movement if the idea is that white people are just intrinsically incapable of understanding. Well, if that's the case, then why does Black Lives Matter go about trying to spread their message? You see how the logic becomes circular very quickly. Now, the thing is, Hillary Clinton, back in the 90s when she was First Lady, that's a record she seems willing to embrace because the 90s are seen as a time of success. Well, back then, her husband Bill not only supported mass incarceration for what she called super predators, and which disproportionately affected black people and Hispanics, but he also embraced free trade with NAFTA and other trade deals. Now, while all Americans suffered from free trade deals by losing manufacturing jobs abroad, this disproportionately affected minorities who lived in places like Detroit and in the former Rust Belt, more so than anywhere else in the country. So this whole idea that her record on minority issues is somehow sterling gold, or sterling silver, or whatever the mineral would be in this case, is just not sustainable if you actually look at her record, or the record she claims. I'm not even sure how responsible she should be held to be for the 90s, since she was merely the First Lady. Now, let's go back to the dirty tactics of her campaign against Bernie. So the first thing she tried to hit him on was gun control. Now, this is a major issue for a lot of Democrats. And granted, almost anybody in her position would probably do about the same thing. The problem is, there aren't really any major differences between her positions and Bernie's positions and O'Malley's positions and Lincoln Chafee's positions on gun control. The differences were merely rhetorical. Bernie would state more emphatically that he does support the right to own like single-shot rifles for hunting. So that difference is on the surface and not one of substance. There's also the uncomfortable reality that nobody wants to face, that gun control in modern America is almost a moot point because of how many guns there truly are in circulation. Estimates are a little hard to do since many guns are unregistered. A lot of them are heirlooms, a lot of them are illegal. But the thing is, there are so many guns out there, and guns as mechanisms last long enough that even if we were to confiscate every known gun and stop manufacturing guns, there are still enough guns out there to keep up this pattern of mass shootings that we've seen recently over the next 150 years. Guns today are built pretty well. They're mechanically relatively simple compared to things like computers. It's not a problem we can actually do much about. Now, while I do support gun control, it's mainly to make myself feel good. I don't pretend for a minute that it'll actually work. We lost this battle long, long ago. We are totally fucked when it comes to guns, if we're being honest with ourselves. We just need to acknowledge that, I think, on some level. Now, her other tactic that made me a lot madder than the gun thing, which everybody's delusional about, is that one of her favorite lines of attack against Bernie is, well, I'm not even sure he's a Democrat. Or sometimes she would say directly, well, he's not even a Democrat. The implication that she tries to make is that Bernie is somehow trying to help the GOP by running against Hillary. That somehow the self-proclaimed Democratic Socialist, who is one of the most ideologically pure members of Congress, is the GOP enemy in disguise. Sure. Look, Bernie Sanders is a New Deal Democrat, just like Noam Chomsky said. Bernie is basically, in the tradition of FDR, the difference is that Bernie has updated his platform to include universal health care, and he also has included his platform to deal with student debt, and he has adopted the social issues which have come to the fore in the Democratic Party since the 1960s. So he's basically an updated New Deal Democrat. What is Hillary? Well, she's all of the social issues without any of the economic substance. I actually think there's a good case to be made that Hillary Clinton, calling herself a Democrat and putting herself under the same label as Franklin Delano Roosevelt, is actually an insult to the intelligence of the Democratic Party base. There have also been some other cringeworthy statements by Hillary Clinton. When she was confronted about Bernie Sanders' plan on healthcare and his modeling of that plan after what they see in places like Scandinavia and Western Europe, she said that she would prefer a more American solution. What the fuck does that even mean? That means nothing. That is pure demagoguery. Later on, she said that she can't be establishment. She can't be a part of this corrupt system of money and politics and buying influence because she's a woman. I mean, if she were a man, that would be a different thing. But because she's a woman, the fact that she takes money is irrelevant, and you're sexist if you pointed it out. And the most disturbing thing for me is when she was accused of shilling for Wall Street during the debates and elsewhere, she had no real defense. One of her defenses ran something along the lines of, well, Wall Street is located in New York City, and I was a senator from New York, so, therefore I represent Wall Street. Which is not an argument. That's an admission. That does not, in any way absolve you of responsibility for supporting people like Goldman Sachs. So it was a massive failure that the media did not follow up on. Her other major argument that she made throughout the process, despite the fact that polls said the exact opposite, is that we have to choose her because she's the only one who can stop Donald Trump in a general election. She will deliver us from evil. Well, the thing is, that's not accurate. And the fact that she runs her campaign along SJW lines by talking about the fact that, only minority groups can understand the plight of minority groups, and that only, she can't be establishment because she's a woman, or running ads specifically aimed at transgendered rights rather than aimed at a broader public. This kind of shit plays in Donald Trump's hands because he has established himself as the anti-PC candidate. And the sad fact is, there are many Americans who believe that political correctness is a greater threat to them personally than the economic policies of the Republican Party. Now, I don't know how they've reached that level of delusion, but again, they nominated an orange freak of nature to be their nominee, so your guess is as good as mine on that one. The irony here, of course, is that while she went all out to win, while she appointed all her partisans to positions of power in the Democratic Party, and that she won by means fair and foul over Bernie Sanders, the little-known senator from Vermont, she might somehow manage to lose this election, despite the fact that she has a massive advantage in fundraising. Many moderate Republican millionaires have defected to her cause because they think Donald Trump is a lunatic. And the Electoral College right now heavily favors Democrats. Back at the beginning of the process, I said that whoever the Democrats nominate will be our next president. I basically stand by that, except that I could see Hillary Clinton managing to lose if she keeps playing to Donald Trump's strong point by running a campaign which features SJW talking points. We've also seen mass defections to the Democrats because of Donald Trump. It's possible that because of the strength of the anti-SJW movement, we could actually see mass defections in the opposite direction to offset that. And because she has so deeply offended many Bernie supporters, a lot of people will not show up. Now, personally, I am someone who campaigned for Bernie. I canvassed for him 3 times in 3 different states. And I feel very strongly that Hillary Clinton is a piss-poor example of a progressive. However, in November, I will probably still vote for her because I live in a swing state, and I can't possibly countenance the possibility of a Donald Trump presidency. However, I would like to say this. The idea that Hillary Clinton supporters and Hillary herself are blaming Bernie Sanders supporters ahead of time for her possible defeat or for any down ballot repercussions is reprehensible. It's not my fault, and it's not the fault of anybody who went out to canvass or campaign for Bernie, that Hillary Clinton is a shitty candidate. That fault lies with Hillary Clinton and the idiots who voted for her. So if we end up losing in November, blame yourselves, don't blame us. If you feel otherwise, go fuck yourself. This has been Thersites of Athens, and I will no doubt talk to you later about how much I hate Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump and, well, pretty much the entire world.